the rank system before we even talked about the strategies and mentality. Riot's made some tweaks to the system, nothing as huge as dynamic queue, but still something. The first change is the biggest, and it's one that everyone is excited about. Riot finally removed the promotion series between divisions. For example, you no longer need to play a best of 3 series when you hit 100 LP in Gold 4. Your leftover LP will instead carry over into the next division. If you get 25 points at 95 LP in Gold 4, you'll now be 20 LP in Gold 3. It feels terrible to hit 99 LP and then end up playing a match for 1 LP. On top of that, losing the series would make it even worse. Removing divisions not only feels better, but it also helps players see their actual MMR. Right now, there's a huge difference between actual ranking and MMR. Some players can dodge every promo series and inflate their MMR without even increasing in rank. For those of you who played ranked last season, Riot is deciding to reset players closer to their expected rank. That means if you were high plat last season, you'll probably start off placements in low plat instead of gold. Because of this, LP gains and losses will be smaller to avoid moving around too much. This change will mean less games to get back to your expected ranked. If you're playing on the same level as before, you won't need to win as many games since you'll already be closer. It would have been nice to hear this change before Season 10 ended since your final rank is more important now. Riot has slowly been addressing the MMR disparity in solo queue games, which means early season matchmaking won't be as awful as usual. If you're really itching to play ranked, you don't need to worry as much about the unfair games. Still, there might be a few bronze players in your gold games. The best way to secure a more evenly matched placement series is to wait until a week or two has gone by before queuing up. The last rank change is specifically for players who usually end the season Diamond. In Season 10, you could get by playing 1 game every 30 days to avoid decaying out of Diamond. In Season 11, Diamond will be using the same system that Master Plus players use, which involves active days. With this change, every game that you play will store 7 active days, up to a cap of 28. This means that in order to cap out on active days, you'll need to start by playing 4 ranked games. Players who want to get to D4 and then cruise until the season ends will now need to play 4 games a month instead of 1. With how easy it is to demote out of a rank, it'll be harder for players to camp their elo. This is a nice change, making Diamond feel more like an accomplishment. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about how you should approach your placement games. These matches are stressful, and for good reason. We're here to give you some advice on handling your placements. Try to keep this stuff in mind when you're deciding whether or not you want to queue up for another game. The first thing I think of when I hear placements is tilt. Yeah, I get it. League can be pretty tilting of a game. Everyone gets annoyed, but the way you handle it will decide how good of a chunk of your games play out. When you're tilting, you're tunneling in on something that just happened, something that's just out of your control. If my jungler comes into my lane to gank and ends up feeding double buffs, the first thing I want to do is tilt, and maybe flame, maybe mute, I don't know. All of the above. Stopping yourself and stepping away for a second can really help stop the wave of negativity from coming in. You'll never be able to play well if you're tilted. There's just way too much effort spent on complaining. So what I personally do is I have boba. I know it sounds ridiculous. It could be Arizona iced tea or whatever whatever's your speed. But if I'm about to tilt, I just take a sip. So essentially, you just want to stop the tilt and focus on the next play. The worst part about League is that it can be pretty exhausting to play. Pair that with your bot lane feeding and you'll be drained after a few games. Your placements aren't going anywhere, so even if you're not the kind of player to take a break, make an exception during your placements. Losing 2 placement games from tilting means that you pretty much lost 20 games worth of time. Save yourself the trouble and take a break when you find yourself feeling off. And before we jump into the next section, we want to make a small announcement. You can now head over to ProGuides.com to gift the gift of self-improvement this holiday. ProGuide points will be available for gifting, so make sure you get some for your low elo friend. We all have that one guy in our friend group who's in desperate need of coaching, so don't hesitate to click that link in the description. Before you even start your ranked games, consider warming up a bit. You wouldn't believe how many players hop into a game and make a mistake that they don't usually make. Pro players are always warming up before scrims, so treat rank as important as scrims. Since our goal is to rank up, our time should be spent in the best shape possible. Warming up can mean a few things, and everyone has their own way of doing so. Jumping into a practice tool is great for practicing specific situations that you don't need another player for. Usually this involves mechanics, combos, auto cancels, and basic CSing are good ways to ready the basic skills. Everyone hates feeling rusty and messing up their CS for no reason. If you got a duo or a friend around, see if they want to do some 1v1s. You'd be surprised at how much you can learn from lobbing out something with a friend. You can practice certain matchups, get better practice for last hitting, and improve general trading and wave management. This works best if you got someone who's also invested in climbing this season. If you got a lot of time to play, warming up with a normal game or 2 is really good for natural practice. Don't worry about the game's outcome and focus on whatever you're trying to do. You're not wasting your time by playing normal instead of ranked before a ranked session. However, if you only got time for 1 or 2 ranked games, I would recommend one of the other ways to warm up. Once you finish your placements, learning to dodge games will save you a lot of time and trouble down the line. There's not really a hard ruling on dodges, and the criteria that you use totally depends on the type of player that you are. A general rule is that you never want to dodge 3 games in a row, since the time and LP loss will be greatly increased. At most, you should dodge 2 games max and then don't dodge again for the day. So, when exactly should you dodge? Dodging games should only happen when something specific happens in Champ Select. I don't suggest dodging every time you feel like there's a bad team comp, or else you'll probably never be able to play the game. If you aren't already, you can use op.gg to look up teammates and see who is on or off role. Remember that Riot tries to balance off-role players, so the enemy might have one too. Deciding when to dodge is subjective. No one knows exactly how a game will go, and that's the best part of League. The only time I really suggest dodging is if there's something already going down in the client chat. If 2 guys just got out of a terrible game, they might flame each other before the game even starts. This is usually a sign for a bad game, so dodging here isn't a bad idea. What's also not a bad idea is that you can now report them in the Champ Select screen, so go ahead and try that out. If you aren't caught up on the meta, we pretty much have all the changes up to Season 11 mapped out for us. Our coaches over at ProGuides.com have a grasp of the future meta and some suggestions for champions to pick up before the season even begins. If you want to check out some more in-depth assistance about any champions or macro decisions, book a session with one of our high elo staff. If you're a top laner, we highly recommend looking at Pantheon on Shen. Pantheon is seriously strong after Riot tweaked his kit a little bit for more of a solo laning playstyle than a support. His early strength is there, working especially well against melee champions without mobility. At level 6, his ultimate's passive armor penetration makes his damage spike enough to win almost any all-in. Shen's position as an S-tier top is staying until he gets nerfed. His trades are insanely powerful, working well against tanks, fighters, and bruisers. His cross-map utility is extra valuable in solo queue, making it easy to completely win games if you're paying attention. As a jungler, we recommend and suggest picking up Nunu and Echo. There are a few really powerful junglers right now, and the one that is least banned is Nunu, as he can quite literally snowball games. He's a pretty easy champion to pick up and has a surprisingly high skill ceiling. With how powerful Sunfire is, Nunu will stay relevant as one of the strongest tank junglers in the game. Echo is another champion that works great in solo queue. He's able to deal a bunch of damage, engage fights, and has a rewind button and a short cooldown. Echo is seriously annoying to deal with. And in a meta where you have a little bit of time to farm, he has no issue scaling into the mid and late game. As a mid laner, we think you should try out Anivia and Zed. Anivia's recent buffs have put her in an amazing position, out-damaging most AP mid laners without running out of mana, though she may be getting nerfed soon, so go ahead and just keep an eye out for that. It's gonna take some time before she gets nerfed enough, so it's worth investing in her. Her power ramps up quickly now, allowing you to take important fights early. Zed has been creeping around as arguably the strongest assassin. Duskblade makes you slippery while giving you the extra burst, his laning isn't bad, and he is one of the best split pushers in the game. As an ADC, we suggest looking into Jhin and Vayne. Jhin is still strong despite all the Eclipse nerfs. The recent buffs to Gale Force gave him a viable option to opt out for a more crit-based build. With an early and late game build, Jhin is one of the most versatile picks right now. Vayne players are loving all the crit item buffs, giving her massive damage when she picks up Kraken Slayer. She's still the best tank, kind of an evasive tank when it comes to dealing with tanks. As a support, we recommend picking up Leona and Nami for Season 11. Leona remains an extremely powerful support with damage and CC to win fights in the early game. She's easy to pick up and works great as a blind pick once you're comfortable with her. Nami is one of the best enchanters, using Imperial Mandate better than any other support. Her damage and sustain are great, making her a solid all-around choice. And that's pretty much everything that you need to know before Season 11 starts. If you enjoyed this type of video, feel free to subscribe to our channel. We hope that you're as excited as we are about the new rank season. Don't forget to answer our question of the day in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.